Greetings, dear viewers. Today we are embarking on a fascinating journey into the amazing world of dog behavior to discuss a topic that brings smiles to many owners' faces, but actually hides deep evolutionary meaning and complex communication mechanisms. We'll be talking about why dogs so persistently sniff the rear ends of other animals. Is this simple curiosity, bad manners, or something much more complex and significant? What exactly do our four-legged friends learn during this seemingly strange ritual? Today we'll dive into the amazing world of scents and reveal all the secrets of this behavior. Imagine this situation. You've brought your dog to the park, and upon meeting another pet, the first thing your four-legged friend does is rush to sniff the rear end of the new acquaintance. Many owners feel embarrassed at this moment and try to pull their pet away. But did you know that by preventing this process, you're depriving your dog of the opportunity to receive crucial information about a potential friend or rival? In everyday life, we regularly observe how dogs thoroughly sniff each other when they meet. And they don't do this out of bad manners or lack of etiquette. This is an ancient nature program mechanism of social interaction. You could say that for dogs, this is a kind of handshake, only much more informative than for humans. While during a handshake we can assess grip strength, palm temperature, and perhaps skin moisture, dogs receive a whole array of data through sniffing that we can't even imagine. Let's start with the most fundamental fact. Dogs perceive the surrounding world primarily through smell. While humans rely primarily on vision, for dogs scents form the main picture of reality. Imagine for a minute that your sense of smell is tens or even hundreds of thousands of times sharper than it is now. According to scientists, a dog's sense of smell surpasses humans by 10 to 100,000 times. This means a dog can detect the scent of one drop of a substance dissolved in a volume equivalent to 20 Olympic swimming pools. These are the amazing abilities our four-legged companions possess. Their nose is a real chemical laboratory capable of analyzing the smallest particles of scents and extracting a colossal amount of information from them. While the human nose contains about 6 million olfactory receptors, dogs have between 100 million and 300 million, depending on the breed. Additionally, the part of the brain responsible for processing smells in dogs is approximately 40 times larger relative to overall brain size than in humans. It's like comparing a simple pocket flashlight to a powerful spotlight. We can detect obvious smells, but much remains invisible to us. For dogs, the world is literally permeated with aromatic signals that constantly carry valuable information. Amazingly, dogs can even determine the direction of a scent thanks to the difference in its intensity between their two nostrils. Now, let's move on to the most interesting part. Dogs have a special organ that many owners haven't even heard of. It's called the Vomeronasal organ, or Jacobson's organ. It's located in the upper part of the palate, and it's thanks to this organ that dogs can detect pheromones, special chemical substances that are secreted by glands and carry information about the physiological and emotional state of an organism. To activate this organ, dogs sometimes make a characteristic movement. They lift their upper lip and quickly lick their nose. Scientists call this the Pheromones response. Perhaps you've observed this behavior in your pet and wondered about this strange grimace. And yet, at this moment, a true wonder of nature is occurring. The dog is actively analyzing the chemical composition of the air, receiving information unavailable to normal smell. Pheromones are contained in large quantities in dogs' anal glands, located on both sides of the anus. These specialized glands produce secretions with a unique chemical composition containing many biomarkers, a kind of chemical signature of the organism. Each dog has its own unique aroma, as unique as fingerprints are for humans. When a dog sniffs this area on another dog, a true miracle of communication occurs. It receives a whole complex of data about its fellow dog. You could say it reads the complete chemical profile of the other animal. This can be compared to reading a detailed biography in seconds. Imagine approaching a stranger and instantly learning their age, gender, health status, mood, even what they had for breakfast. These are exactly the superpowers that dogs possess. What exactly does a dog learn when sniffing? Let's examine this question in more detail. First of all, the gender of the other animal. The scents of males and females differ significantly due to different hormonal backgrounds. Male secretions contain more testosterone and its derivatives, females, estrogens. This helps dogs navigate their social interactions and build appropriate behavior models. Interestingly, neutered males smell different than unneutered ones, and this also affects how other dogs relate to them. The dog also determines reproductive status. This is especially important when a male and female meet. The scent can accurately determine if the female is in estrus, heat, and ready for mating. This is extremely important information from a reproduction standpoint. During heat, a female releases specific pheromones that can attract males from a distance of several kilometers. The scent can also determine if a female is pregnant or perhaps recently had puppies. In the latter case, other dogs, especially males, will behave more cautiously to avoid provoking the mother's protective aggression. Equally important information is emotional state. Is the other dog experiencing fear, aggression, or calmness? All this is reflected in the scent of the secretions. When afraid, the body produces specific hormones, such as adrenaline, which change the smell of secretions. The same happens with aggression or stress. Imagine being able to literally feel the mood of the person you're talking to just by sniffing. For dogs, this isn't science fiction, but reality. That's why they often understand the emotional state of other animals and even humans better than we do. Did you know that by scent, a dog can determine the health status of another animal? Various diseases change the chemical composition of secretions, and a sensitive nose can detect this. Inflammations, infections, hormonal disorders, all this is reflected in the smell of secretions. Perhaps this is why sick animals are often ostracized in the pack. Healthy dogs sense the smell of illness and avoid contact to prevent infection. It's no coincidence that in medicine, dogs are now actively used to diagnose certain diseases in humans. Specially trained dogs can identify lung cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, even in early stages, by the smell of exhaled air or urine samples with high accuracy. Dogs are also trained to detect approaching epileptic seizures, sharp spikes in glucose levels in diabetics, and other dangerous conditions. All this is based on their phenomenal sense of smell, which allows them to detect the smallest changes in the chemical composition of body secretions. Diet is another aspect that can be learned through sniffing. What an animal eats leaves its chemical trace in secretions. This can be important for determining status in the pack. Those who eat better usually occupy a higher position. Additionally, the scent can determine whether a dog eats meat or predominantly plant-based food, whether it receives enough protein and other nutrients. In an experiment conducted by a group of ethologists, dogs were given various types of food, and then the reaction of other dogs to their scent was analyzed. It turned out the dogs that received high-quality protein food aroused greater interest and respect from their fellows. Let's talk now about social hierarchy. In the wild, wolves and other members of the canine family live in packs with a clear subordination structure. Scent marks help determine the status of each pack member. Dominant individuals leave more marks and do so in more noticeable places. Subordinate animals, on the contrary, mark territory less frequently and more modestly. And although domestic dogs no longer live in such strict hierarchical systems, the evolutionarily established communication mechanisms remain. Interestingly, in relationships with humans, dogs also use smell to determine status. They sense the smell of adrenaline, which is released during fear or uncertainty. If a person is afraid of a dog, it immediately recognizes this by smell. This explains why it's harder for insecure or fearful people to establish contact with dogs. Animals literally sense their fear. When sniffing, dogs can also learn about the territory where another animal lives. Environmental scents are absorbed into the dog's fur and skin and become part of its overall scent profile. Thus, dogs can understand where their new acquaintance came from: a city apartment, a rural yard, or perhaps a forest. The fur retains microparticles of dust, plant pollen characteristic of a particular area. For a dog's nose, this is an open book. In one study, scientists found that dogs can distinguish the scents of trees of different species and even individual trees of the same species. Imagine that for your dog, each tree in the park has its own unique aroma. It's like distinguishing people by their faces for us. That's how precisely dogs differentiate scents. Let's draw a parallel with human communication. When we meet a new person, we read many signals: facial expression, clothing, manner of speaking, handshake. All of this forms a first impression. For dogs, sniffing serves a similar function. Only the information they receive is much more accurate and objective, because scent cannot be faked or changed by willpower. You can smile, but if you're experiencing fear or aggression, the scent will give you away completely, at least to a dog. Now, let's think. Why has the rear part of the body become the main source of information? It's all about the concentration of anal glands, which secrete the most informative substances. In this area are paired anal sacs, specialized glands that produce secretions with a characteristic, usually unpleasant to humans, smell. Evolutionarily, this part of the body has become a kind of business card for dogs. Additionally, other glands that secrete pheromones are located in the rear part of the body. In females during heat, glands in the vulva area are especially active. In males, pheromones are also contained in urine, which they use to mark territory. Interestingly, when lifting a leg during urination, males aren't just emptying their bladder but also leaving an important message for other dogs. I was here, this is my territory. Did you know that dogs have other scent glands? For example, special interdigital glands are located between the toes. When a dog scratches the ground after urination or defecation, it leaves an additional scent mark. And on the paw pads are sweat glands that actively work when the dog is anxious. That's why an alarmed dog often leaves wet footprints on the floor. However, not all dogs show the same interest in sniffing. This depends on breed, age, gender, and individual characteristics. Some breeds, such as bloodhounds, basset hounds, beagles, or German shepherds, are known for their exceptional sense of smell and may show increased interest in scents. It's no coincidence that these breeds are often used in search and rescue operations to find explosives or drugs. Young dogs are usually more curious and actively use smell to learn about the world. With age, interest in sniffing may decrease, although this is individual for each dog. Also, males typically show more interest in scent marks than females, especially regarding marks left by other males. Have you noticed that dogs sniff not only other dogs but humans too? Of course, etiquette doesn't allow them to do this as thoroughly as with their own kind, but the principle is the same. By sniffing a person, a dog reads information about their condition, mood, even diseases. Human scent contains a wealth of information, from hormonal status to emotional state. A dog can determine whether a person has been in contact with other animals, what they've been doing, where they've been. There have been cases when pets began to show concern and increased attention to certain parts of their owners' bodies, shortly before they were diagnosed with serious diseases. There's a known case where a dog constantly sniffed and licked a mole on her owner's leg. The woman went to the doctor, and it turned out to be melanoma at an early stage. The dog literally saved her life. Another amazing fact, dogs can remember scents for a very long time. In an experiment, dogs were taught to recognize a certain smell, and then their memory was tested at different time intervals. It turned out that even after a year, dogs unmistakably recognized a familiar smell among many others. For comparison, most people struggle to recognize scents they encountered just a few weeks ago. Now let's ask the question, should we prevent such behavior of our pets? From the perspective of dog psychology, categorically no. By forbidding a dog to sniff other dogs, we deprive it of a crucial communication channel. It's like forbidding a person to look into the eyes of the person they're talking to or to shake hands. Of course, in some situations, it's necessary to control the pet's behavior, especially if another dog or its owner shows anxiety. But in general, this is completely natural and critically important behavior for dogs. Dog trainers recommend giving dogs enough time to sniff when meeting their fellows. This promotes the establishment of normal social connections and prevents potential conflicts. When dogs have met well enough through sniffing, they are much more likely to interact peacefully in the future. By the way, an interesting fact. Dogs don't always allow themselves to be sniffed. Sometimes they may turn away or even show aggression if another dog is too persistent. This may be related to their own emotional state or desire to maintain personal space. Dogs, like people, have a concept of personal boundaries, and some of them are more demanding about respecting them. Dogs with traumatic experiences, such as those from shelters or the street, can be especially sensitive to invasion of personal space. They may perceive attempts at sniffing as a potential threat. Such dogs need more time for socialization and establishing trusting relationships with their fellows. There is an opinion that stress and illnesses can change a dog's smell, making it less pleasant for fellows. Therefore, if you notice that other dogs have begun to react strangely to your pet, perhaps you should consult a veterinarian to check its health status. A change in smell may be one of the first signs of an emerging disease, even when other symptoms are not yet present. Some diseases, such as diabetes, kidney failure, or liver diseases, can give the dog's breath and secretions a specific smell, noticeable even to the human nose. For other dogs, these changes are even more obvious. There have been cases where dogs refused to contact fellows who were subsequently diagnosed with serious diseases. In the context of training, it should be considered that for a dog, sniffing is not just curiosity, but a vital necessity. Complete suppression of this instinct can lead to frustration and behavioral problems. A wise owner will find a balance between discipline and respect for the natural needs of their four-legged friend. Many trainers recommend including special time for dog surfing and walks, when the dog is allowed to freely explore the sense of the environment. This is important not only for the psychological well-being of the pet, but also for its cognitive development. Processing scent information is a complex process requiring active brain work. By allowing your dog to train its nose, you contribute to its mental development. What about other animals? Interestingly, dogs apply their method of getting acquainted to representatives of other species: cats, horses, even humans. However, the reaction may be different. Some animals, especially those not accustomed to dogs, may perceive this as aggression or invasion of personal space. Cats, for example, often react negatively to attempts at sniffing. This is explained by differences in communication methods. For cats, visual and tactile signals are more important than scent ones. In science, the study of dogs' sense of smell is in full swing. Scientists are developing special tests to evaluate the abilities of a dog's nose. Already today, dogs help in the search for drugs, explosives, missing people, and identifying diseases. And all this thanks to their amazing sense of smell, which in everyday life manifests itself, including in sniffing. There is data that a dog's sense of smell is so fine that it can detect one drop of a substance in a volume of water equivalent to 20 Olympic swimming pools. Can you imagine such sensitivity? For us, this is almost incomprehensible. Interestingly, the perception of time in dogs is also related to smells. Smell is not an instant snapshot, but a whole story. As the smell ages, it changes, and dogs sense this. Thus, they can determine how much time has passed since another dog left its mark. Now let's imagine a situation. You're walking with your dog in the park and it persistently sniffs a certain place. For your dog, this isn't just a patch of grass or a post, but an entire information bulletin board. It learns which dogs have been here, in what condition, possibly even where they were headed next, and all this thanks to its amazing sense of smell. In this context, sniffing the rear part of another dog's body is just one way of obtaining important information. You could say that for dogs, smell is an entire language, no less complex and informative than human speech. And just as we use different linguistic means for communication, dogs apply various techniques for reading scents. By the way, did you know that dogs can distinguish the scents of twins? Even identical twins having identical genetic material smell different to dogs. This shows how fine an instrument a dog's nose is. In conclusion, I'd like to say that understanding the nature of dog behavior helps us interact better with our four-legged friends. By realizing that behind actions strange from a human perspective stand millions of years of evolution and complex communication mechanisms, we begin to treat dogs with greater respect. I hope this information was useful and interesting for you. Now, when you see dogs sniffing each other when meeting, you'll understand that this isn't just curiosity or bad manners, but a complex and effective way of communication, developed over millions of years of evolution. Thank you for your attention. If you liked this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. In the comments, tell us about your observations of dog behavior. Perhaps your experience will help others better understand their pets. Until next time in the world of amazing facts about animals.